NGE, Nobody Dies Chapter 2, The City of Lost Children, an Evangelion fanfic. The light streams in through the window, hitting the eyes of the bedroom's occupant as she gives off a yawn, followed by bracing her hands on the bed and flipping out of the covers. Landing on the balls of her feet, her pajamas billowing as she gives off a brief twirl, she stretches her arms above her head and leaps over to her closet. School uniform in hand, she hangs it on the hook of her bedroom door, skipping to the laptop computer set up by her bed and clicking open her email server. "Oh, good, Rayanami," first child thinks, "she got my message." Folding her legs under her, manic smile on her face, she begins perusing the email, grinning the entire way. Well, she does have to get going, soon enough. It's Shinji's first day at school. But what could possibly go wrong? Chapter 2, City of Lost Children. The open hand slap hits him hard enough to send him off his feet. His shoulder hits the grass first, followed by the rest of him, and Shinji groans. The groan comes from two sources, because his face is burning, and because he has landed on his keys. Half expecting the slap to be followed by kicks to the ribs, he rolls onto his back and props himself up on his elbows. His salvation comes in the form of another student, dressed in a black, green piped tracksuit instead of the slacks and shirt school uniform, which is holding the aggressor by the waist as she kicks and screams. It started innocently enough. The girl, who he will admit is cute in her own way, with her dark pigtails and air of assumed if not actual authority, had asked to talk with him once he let it slip he was the new pilot. "You stupid bastard." Hikari Hiraki, class representative of Class 4A at Tokyo 3 Municipal High School, screams, one shoe barely missing his head as she continues kicking. "What do you mean you didn't see her?" "Calm down." The boy yells. "Geez, class rep. Calm down." Off to the side, the glasses-wearing boy watches in mute horror, his camcorder forgotten in his hand. He saved her life. After he stepped on her. Shinji scrambles to his feet. The situation begins to dawn, begins to come together. Hands on his knees, wheezing, he looks up, to explain. Which is when a pale hand comes down on his shoulder, and he looks up into the deep red eyes. "Hey," Re says with a smile, "what did I miss?" Hikari stops struggling, freezing, as the camcorder drops to the ground. "Oh, goody," Re says, folding her hands at her waist, "my co-worker has made his first friends." "Shinji, this is Hikari. The guy restraining her is Tsuji, and the kid looking at my boobs is Kensuke. Say hi, everyone." Three mumbled greetings. "So," Re says, "why's my co-worker been assaulted?" Three sets of sputtering responses, until Tsuji lets the girl down, scratching the back of his head. "Hikari's little sister was injured," Tsuji says, "when the monster put the robot's head through a building. She got hurt." "I'm really sorry," Re says, shushing Shinji with a look, "but, we all know that the angel did it, not Shinji. If the angel was still around for you to beat up, well, if the angel was still around, we'd all be dead. So I'm gonna have to very nicely ask that you not touch my co-worker." She smiles, teeth showing. "K?" Shinji, at this point, has never been more scared in his life. "I'm gonna go back inside," Re says, patting Shinji on the shoulder, "You three play nice, K?" She walks past them, whistling out of tune. Silently, averting his gaze, Hikari walks back in, followed by Kensuke. Thrusting his hands in his pockets, Tsuji groans. "Look," he says, "for what it's worth, sorry. If you didn't dig her out, she would have died, and so, yeah. Sorry." He turns and walks back in, yelling for them to wait. Groaning, he finally falls onto his seat on the grass. Holding his head, hands behind his head, he puts his head between his knees and silently, mercilessly, swears. "Damn it." 12 black monoliths glow in the darkness. Standing at the center, in the spotlight, clad in a red sweater and black skirt and lab coat, Hikari pushes her glasses up and smirks. The years have been kind to her. Pushing 40, she still resembles a woman in her prime. The destruction of the fourth angel has been accomplished, O2 in tones, even with the modifications to the divine technology. You have accomplished that which you promised, Dr. Hikari. As I said I would, Yue responds, the synthesis has proven to be an alternative to our initial methods of activating the Evangelions, and the problems initially dealt with only pushed the timeline back 2 years. So, it is time to move to the next phase. Which would be? O1 asks. Should the angels concentrate their attacks on Tokyo 3, she says, I request that Unit O2, as well as its pilot and creator, be transferred to Tokyo 3. I will repeat this request when the fifth angel has been dealt with, so we can be certain that we are their focus. It shall be considered, O1 responds, prove to us it is logical and it shall be done. What is the status of the Evangelions? Folding her arms underneath her bosom, she grins. Unit 00 will be combat ready in 1 month, she says. Unit 01 sustained minimal damage and will require only a week's repair. Ra has also progressed, and has displayed more extra-normal abilities. Understood, 06 says, and the others? The others will be ready within 6 months, she says. The new scenario progresses as promised. Now, if the committee will excuse me, I have not seen my son in 4 years. I believe the lull we have is an appropriate time to catch up. The others disappear, save for one, which itself turns into an old man in a visor and black robes. It is fortunate you are still with us, Dr. Lawrence Kiel says, but do not forget. We shall not. Of course not, Kiel, she says with a smirk, mankind has no time left. And the hologram disappears. He made it a point to avoid everyone's gaze, especially the class representatives, studiously typing away as the teacher, an old man who he is surprised is moving under his own power, drones on about second impact. Still, his thoughts wander. The girl he saved. The girl he saved after he almost killed her through his own incompetence. Excuse me? Looking up, he sees that the classroom is empty, and the sun has reached its zenith outside. Lunchtime. Looking up, past his computer, he sees her. She is smiling, shakily, unsure of her own smile. Her hands are clasped at her waist and she is waiting for him to respond. Going for the other cheek? He asks. No, Hikari says, who wanted to apologize. Okay, he says. It was wrong of me to blame you for what happened to Nozomi, she says, my sister. Her name is Nozomi. I shouldn't blame you for that. Okay, he says, closing his computer. And since you saved us by piloting, she continues, I should not have reacted like I did. Okay? He sighs, nodding. Well? She asks. Rep put you up to this? He asks, smirking slightly when she freezes up. Look, since I came here, I've almost died 3 times, once because of her. I understand if she scared you into doing this. She scares me, too. She sighs, pulling up a chair and sitting down in it. Hands twisting in her lap, she lowers her head, clenching her eyes shut. He sighs, mentally kicking himself once more as he has frequently this day. Sorry, he says, I'm sorry I said that. Are you all right? I guess, she says, I just haven't heard from the doctors about her, yet. So we're all really worried. She's only 10 years old and... I see you've already made a friend. The two turn, Hikari wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. Yue smiles, walking into the classroom, giving it an appraising look before she turns back to her son. Hikari, Yue says, how are you? I'm fine, Dr. Hikari, she responds, I shall go. A small look passes between the two. Shinji clears his throat, standing up. Mom, he says, I wanted to know if I could ask about something. Yue nods, folding her arms as Hikari stands up to excuse herself. That girl who was injured, Shinji says. Could you find out what happened to her? That wasn't your fault, Yue says. Please, Shinji says, we just want to know. Yue sighs, running a hand through her hair. Pushing her glasses back up her nose, she takes out a PDA and flips through messages and text, tracing her finger on the touch screen and nodding as she centers on a particular report. Oh, I see, she says with a grin, turning to Hikari. Your sister? Hikari nods, quickly. Well, the bad news, Yue says, she broke her left leg and her right foot, and bruised 3 ribs. The good news is that there wasn't any real blood loss or lasting damage. The doctors were going to call you this afternoon, but you can take this home now, if you want. She'll be released next week, and the doctors tell me she'll be back to normal in. She taps a display, sending an order. 3 months. Since it was a nerve operation, nerve is covering the cost. Okay? Hikari nods, a smile parting her face. Hands clasped as a relieved smile gives way to an equally relieved laugh, and hesitating for a second, she hugs Shinji. His eyes go wide and his face goes beet red before she quickly pulls back, mutters an apology, and turns back to the smiling Dr. Hikari. Now, run along, Yue says, I'm taking my son out to lunch. Nodding, she does, breaking into a sprint when she reaches the hall. Damn it, he mutters. What? She asks, and narrows her eyes, grabbing his chin and looking at his cheek. Who did this to you? She did, he sighs. It's my fault. I blew my cover and her sister was hurt. I deserved it. She sighs, placing her hands on his shoulders. I know, he says, I know it's not my fault. Everyone's telling me that doesn't mean it's true. He shrugs her off, walking towards the exit. Let's go. He picks at the pasta. Not looking her in the eye, brow furrowed and the most getting out of him a series of grunts and acknowledgements. Considering they have not seen each other in 4 years, it is perfectly possible he has gone mute, but she's thinking that isn't particularly likely. Poor boy, Yue thinks, so young, but has to do so much. I think Hikari likes you, she says. She wouldn't have apologized if she didn't. She's a friend of Ray's. They sit at a bistro near the school, and Yue considers it her privilege to pull her son out of school for a long overdue day out. People file in and out, and the glass of wine is half drained while his tea is barely touched. So, Dad's busy? He asks. Of course he is, she says. It was me or him, and you know your father. He's distant at best. You know he loves you, he just isn't good at showing that love. He grunts in response. I know this is hard, she says, but for the next few weeks, we're going to be asking a lot of you. Unit 00 won't be ready for a few weeks, so if another angel attacks, we'll need you to pilot Unit 01. Another grunt. She sighs, adjusting her glasses. Calling up her PDA, she clicks up a file, smiling as she turns back to him. Thankfully, you're not going to be the only one, Yue says, picking at her salad as people stream by. Unit 02's pilot will be here soon enough. You might get along with him. He's a strange boy, little odd. Dr. Saho will come along with him, probably bring her daughter with her, too. I think it's been 6 years since I saw either of those two. A cell phone rings. Yue reaches into her jacket, looking at it, and smiles. Guten Tag, she sings songs. Why, hello there. We were just talking, Well, good to hear. Would you? Flipping the phone in her hand, she points it towards him. I have someone on the line who would like to speak with you. Hesitantly, he takes the phone, bringing it up to his ear. Hello? Silence on the other line. He raises an eyebrow, looking at the phone before bringing it back to his ear. Hello? He asks. Yuhi? He says, did someone want to talk to me? Yue sighs, resting her hand on her head. She motions Shinji towards her, taking the phone from his hand. Yes. Okay, she sighs. Waito, hello Kyoko. No, no, it's not a problem. Look, don't blameno. No. Look, I'm getting the committee to okay it, and we'll ship you over. Yes, I do want you to bring her, she is not a burden and I do not appreciate you speaking of her like that. Narrows her eyes, a snarl appearing on her lips. No, that is an order. I am head of Project T, and you are going to bring all of them, or you get to cool your heels in Berlin. Really? Good. She sighs, closing the phone. Bitch. Eyes snap open as he stares at her. She is, Yui says with a shrug, difficult woman at best. At least the change of scenery should do the girl good. He taps his fork, brow furrowing as he glances from side to side. Who was that? Dr. Kyoko Zeppelin-san, Yui sighs, and that girl trying to talk with you? That was her daughter? She sighs, putting away the phone. Poor girl, Yui says, change of scenery will do her so much good. Nothing she does is good enough for that woman. The limo, on his request, let him off on the hill leading to the apartment block. Hefting his school bag over his shoulder, he walks, thoughts drifting. At least one thing went right, when he got her the news about her sister. At least that's one less thing on his shoulders as he walks the street towards his home. Hey. Sorry your first day sucked. He starts, turning and finding Ray walking next to him. Where did you come from? He asks. Oh, here and there, she says, skipping to her side and walking along the divider line, you know. Places. She smiles, that wide, happy, toothy smile, skipping on the white line. We sort of live near each other, she says. I live alone, since your parents are always busy at work. I don't think the commander and Dr. Ikari've been home all month. You live with my parents? He asks, turning to her. Yeah. Since they found me, she responds, stretching her arms above her head. Well, last couple of years, at least. Before that, I lived at Nerve. One quick hop, and she walks on the curb, arms out as she balances herself. Shinji watches her as she whistles, each step extended, a caricature of proper posture. Her face is barely readable, with a mixture of joy and something else. Before that, I didn't really live anywhere, she says, mainly just the tube my mom made me in. But, that's close enough to normal, isn't it? You don't really live anywhere until you're born, right? I guess. She smiles, leaning side to side as she walks. Her whistling song reaching its climax, she hops off, patting him on the shoulder. Don't worry about it, she says, can't get anyone else angry at you now, can you? So, tomorrow'll be a better, brighter day. Am I right? I guess so, he says with a shrug. Okay. I guess it will. I don't think I injured any other students. She laughs. Loud, and happy, and throaty. He stops in his tracks as she laughs, almost doubling over. Smiling, eyes alight, and maybe glowing, she turns back to him, patting him on the cheek. If you think that was bad, she says, ask me about the third angel sometime. Now that was bloody. Her knuckles crack. And I did that with my bare hands, too. The rest of the walk back is spent in silence. The clock reads 11 o'clock. Misato hasn't come back from Nerve yet, but she said tomorrow will be her day off and she'll be around. He cooked his own dinner and watched television, doing his homework as the other resident, a warm water penguin that surprised him in the shower last night, read the newspaper and had a beer. It is exhausted, physically, mentally, and emotionally, that he finally lies down on his bed and starts to drift off towards sleep. Which is, his luck holding out, when the phone rings. Muttering, burying his head in the pillow as he rolls onto his stomach, he gropes for the phone and opens it, bringing it up to his ear as he flips it open. Yes. Hello? Yeah, he moans, hello? Am I waking you? He props his head up on his hand, turning the clock to him as he sighs. No, he says, no, you're not. Who is this? Hesitation on the other line. Her voice, and it's definitely a girl, is soft and low. She's whispering. "I'm a fan," she says. "I saw you fight the angel. Dr. Ikari said I could talk to you." He chuckles, faintly, scratching his head. Resting his chin on the pillow, he sighs and rolls onto his back. "Okay," he says, "that's all right. You know my mother?" Sort of. Our mothers work together. You don't mind, right?" "No, I don't. It's fine. You're not another pilot, are you?" A small laugh on the other line. There's sadness in the laugh, something like longing. "No, no. No, she'd never let that happen. I just get to watch." "Oh. Well, it's not that much fun in the cockpit." "I know. Beauty did kill it. I've never seen someone actually beat one of those things. Was it exciting?" "It was terrifying," he responds, closing his eyes. "I could have done better." "Or you could have done worse. I thought you were brave. Very brave." He laughs, faintly. A smile crosses his lips. "Thank you. I mean damn. A click and the call ends. He stares at the phone, lying back. Closing it, resting the phone on his chest, he drifts off into sleep. The phone closes as the woman pushes her glasses up her nose. Folding her arms, she sweeps back her red hair, some gray evident on it as she stares down at the girl. Sighing, she puts the phone down on the desk, drawing a cigarette from the pack in her hand and lighting it as the girl, her daughter, stares at the floor. "I have already told you," Kyoko Zeppelin-Saha says, "not to bother him. He has enough on his mind with you hounding him." The 16-year-old red-haired girl nods, one hand tapping on her desk, and avoiding her mother's gaze. "Yes, mother," she says. "I do not care what his mother says," Kyoko continues, "we do not need to involve ourselves with him. And we certainly do not need people fawning over him when we could do much better with our pilot, do we?" "Yes, mother," the girl responds. She reaches out, grabbing her chin, forcing her to face her. The red hair falls down her back, two blue eyes meeting Kyoko's own. The older woman frowns, an expression she wears more and more these days. Although, that would be unfair. Because that would imply that she had a tendency of smiling in the first place. "Now," Kyoko says, "when the fifth angel is dealt with, we will be taking Unit 02 to Japan. For some reason, Dr. Ikari believes you should come, as well. So that means it is time for you to take your task seriously, finally, and help me with the pilot. Will you?" "Yes, mother." She lets her go. One of the girl's hands clenches into a fist, knuckles cracking as she stands up. "I am heading to Nerve," Kyoko says, buttoning up the last two buttons of her blouse. "Clean yourself up, dress yourself nicely and come with me. The pilot will be happy to see you." "And Asuka?" "Yes, mother." "Behave yourself," Kyoko says, shrugging on her long jacket. "I will not have you be useless around my Evangelion." Asuka Landley-Sahu, rejected pilot of Unit 02, nods. A trickle of blood runs down her palm as she walks towards the bathroom. As she opens the door, she lets one last response escape her lips. "Yes, mother," and closes the door behind her.